Puerto Ricans like to watch the game screaming, drinking beer, eating empanadillas.
Okay, so if you picture baseball, you probably picture this, or maybe even this. Baseball is the United States of America's game, right? The national pastime, the big show. It's about as American as apple pie, right? Well, kind of. What if I told you that the soul of baseball isn't just in the cornfields of Iowa or upstate New York? What if I told you that the heart of baseball is here, or here, and especially here? Baseball is played all over the world. It's played in the United States, Canada, Australia, Japan, Korea, Germany, Israel, and many other places, including, by the way, the Netherlands. But there's no part of the world where baseball has been quite as impactful as the Caribbean. Let's zoom in and take a look. Baseball is played in Venezuela, Panama, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Mexico, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and of course, the Dominican Republic. And not to mention just about everywhere else in the region. But for our story, we're going to focus on these 3 islands, because the story of baseball in these islands might surprise you.
I cannot imagine Major League Baseball without Latinos.
That's Jorge Colon Delgado. He's written 5 books about baseball in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, including Dream Team del Baseball Profesional Boricua. He's the official historian of the Puerto Rico Professional Baseball League, and he grew up dreaming of the game.
Every kid thinks that they're going to play in the big leagues. Every kid. And I thought I was going to go to the big leagues, and you stand the same as Orlando Cepeda, and you catch the ball as Roberto Clemente, or Ivan Rodriguez, or Roberto Alomar. You're a kid, so you can believe anything.
Jorge was like countless other kids in the Caribbean. Puerto Rico, the Dominican, Cuba, they're crazy about the US's game, and for very good reason. The history of this game stretches way back, surprisingly far back. If you right now open up Google and search for the origin of baseball, you'll find a couple of different answers. Some say Abner B. Doubleday invented it in New York in the 1830s. Some say it's been around for hundreds of years. But everyone agrees that the first officially recorded baseball game happened in the 1840s in New Jersey. Why does this matter? Because a few years later, baseball arrived in a place about 1,200 miles away. Here. This is Cuba, and around the same time as the first pitch was being thrown in New Jersey, Cuba was home to men and women who had made fortunes from the island's sugar plantations. And what did wealthy men and women do with their sons and daughters in the 1800s? They sent them to private schools in the States. And the story goes that in 1864, a group of young men returned from their studies with a bat and a baseball, and it was the first time anyone on the island had seen anything like it. They taught their friends, who taught their friends, and soon they formed the Havana Baseball Club. But just 1 year later, Spain, the rulers of Cuba, and much of the region banned baseball. Here's Rob Ruck. He's a professor at the University of Pittsburgh, and he's written 3 books about baseball, including The Tropic of Baseball, Baseball in the Dominican Republic.
The Spanish were apprehensive about baseball because in their minds, baseball represented a democratic, modern alternative to what Spain was offering, which was colonial rule. In several places where Spanish colonialism prevailed, bullfighting took hold. Bullfighting was the Spanish sport. The Spanish were simply unwilling to tolerate any sort of dissent, and eventually they outlawed baseball.
Yeah, can you imagine? Hey kids, don't mess around with that stick and ball. I have a much more fun game for you. Just hold this cape and stand in front of that furious horned beast. Baseball might be a bit boring, but if you're a kid with a little bit of free time and a small yard to play in, are you going to play bullfight? Or are you going to grab a stick and hit a ball as hard as you can? I don't know about you, but I literally never played bullfight as a kid, and the Cubans didn't either. Cuba gained independence and adopted baseball as their sport.
People were playing baseball in every sugar mill town, on every plantation, in rural areas, and of course in the cities. It was the national pastime, and Cubans looked at it as their game, not the North American game.
And it wasn't just the Cuban national pastime. As Cubans emigrated to other parts of the Caribbean, they brought baseball, and it spread like wildfire. The Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Mexico, Panama, they all became obsessed with baseball. And in some places, the Spanish-American War accelerated baseball's spread. But in every place, you can argue that there was an even better reason that it took hold. The players in the Caribbean were good at it, really good. In 1900, 4 years after the game arrived on the island, a Puerto Rico team defeated a military team from the United States. You want to know the score? Well, keep in mind that most common score at the end of the baseball game is 3-2. The Puerto Ricans beat the soldiers 32-18. Yeah, they crushed them, and they were only going to get better, and for one simple reason. Until Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947, African Americans weren't allowed to play baseball in the major leagues in the States, so they came to the Caribbean, to Cuba, to the Dominican, and to Puerto Rico.
They went to every restaurant, and they could stay in any hotel, and they were kings. They came year after year, because here we treat them what they are, as human beings.
Can you imagine some of the greatest athletes in the United States of America were forced to play in the Caribbean and ended up in a massive cultural exchange where they each taught each other the best parts of their styles of play? It wasn't long before the major leagues were filled with Caribbean stars. Minnie Minosa, the Cuban Comet, Orlando Baby Bull Cepeda, Juan Antonio Marichal, the Dominican Dandy. And by the way, baseball players have the best nicknames, don't they? But of all the Latino players, one of the first and biggest Caribbean stars was Sweetness, Roberto Clemente. He played right field for the Pittsburgh Pirates for 18 years. And by the end of his career, his achievements were incredible. He was the first Latin American and Caribbean player to be inducted into the Hall of Fame and received a World Series MVP award. And Clemente wasn't just great at baseball, he was a role model off the field too. And no matter how famous he got, he didn't stop helping others. He hosted free baseball clinics for young, underprivileged players. He donated to charities in Puerto Rico and the wider Caribbean. And then just at 38 years old, he died in an accident while bringing relief supplies to Nicaragua. And today, Clemente is so revered that many Caribbean players refuse to wear his number, 21, out of the respect of his legacy. For them, 21 will always mean Roberto Clemente. And Roberto Clemente was the start of a long tradition of Caribbean excellence in the majors.
Right now, about 25% or more of all Major League ball players are from the Caribbean Basin, and perhaps 40 to 50% of all minor leaguers. If you look at all-star lineups, if you look at your leaders in almost every category of play, Latinos are disproportionately represented.
But no country is more represented than the Dominican Republic. Around 10% of all players come from the DR, and for very good reason.
Traditionally, boys there, when they're babies, are getting bats, balls, and gloves put in their crib. Ball players often come out and distribute gloves, athletic shoes, jerseys, and the like to children.
Baseball is so deeply connected in the Dominican Republic that every single major league team has set up a training academy there.
Those kids live better at the academies, and they are doing what they love to do. And after a couple of years playing in the Dominican Republic, the best of them move to the minor leagues in the United States. And more or less the top 2%, the real creme de la creme, will eventually debut in the major leagues.
The chances of making it big are slim, and a lot of players make sacrifices that don't pan out. But the love of the game is genuine.
Their joy in being ball players, in being athletes, is the joy we all feel as boys and girls embracing sport. It's not yet Moneyball. It's still a game. Now that might change over time, but if you watch these kids playing in the Dominican Summer League or working out, it might be 90 degrees, it might be terrible humidity, but they're playing that game with a joy and a smile.
And for many, that smile is just the beginning. The same kids who grow up chasing fly balls under the Caribbean sun often dream of following the greats who came before them. Pedro Martínez was one of the greatest pitchers in Red Sox history. He and fellow Dominican David Ortiz led their team to break the fabled curse of the Bambino and win the World Series for the first time in 86 years. And these players are practically royalty.
We are so proud of our teams, our ball players. The pride that the Puerto Ricans have was not taught in the schools. The pride that we have was taught by our athletes.